Hello. Hey, Agnes, can you give it like 2 more minutes and we'll just,
Sure.
great.
Welcome, everyone. All right, Kate and Susan, I am ready to go.
Let's go.
Welcome, good morning and good afternoon to everyone who joined the U.S. Department of Commerce's and U.S. Department of State's final virtual conference to support Ukrainian women-led businesses. We are very glad that you are here. My name is Agnes Pawelkowska, and I am the Ukraine Desk Officer at the U.S. Department of Commerce's Office of Russia, Ukraine, and Eurasia based in Washington, D.C. Before we get into today's program, I do have a few quick housekeeping reminders. All of the participants will be muted throughout the conference. The conference will consist of 3 segments: opening remarks, short presentations by organizations and Ukrainian women-led businesses to highlight the relevance of our findings, and conclusion of findings and policy recommendations based on previous conference series. We will be holding a general Q&A session at the end of the conference. Please use the chat box at the bottom of your screen to type in your questions during each session. We will be monitoring all questions, and for those questions we don't have time to get into today, we will get back to you offline with answers. We will, if you need interpretation, please open the globe icon located at the bottom of your screen and select the language for interpretation accordingly. We will be recording today's conference, so if you object, please disconnect now. We will also send all participants a copy of the slides from today's presentation. We have an excellent and very full agenda today, as always. This final virtual conference will conclude the conference series in support of Ukrainian women-led businesses that we started last October. It feels much longer than last October because we've been going with the subject for so long and passionate about, but yes, it has been since last October. As part of the Ukraine Business Facilitation Program, this conference series was created around a simple fact. Ukrainian women-led businesses are increasingly important to Ukrainian economy now and in reconstruction. The ongoing Russia's war on Ukraine has caused a significant socio-economic disruption. It displaced nearly a third of the Ukrainian population, with 4 million Ukrainians misplaced internally, 6.8 million globally, and 61% of the misplaced Ukrainians being women. Women and women-led businesses will continue to play a crucial role in Ukraine's economy going forward. That is why we thought it is crucial to highlight the growing importance of Ukrainian women-led businesses in rebuilding Ukraine's economy and to shed more light on the most pressing needs that they currently face. Our Ukraine Business Facilitation Program did just that. Since last October, we have conducted a series of 5 virtual conferences highlighting the subjects of importance for Ukrainian women-led businesses, including shifting roles of women, technical barriers for businesses, access to capital and financial resources, barriers to operations, and upskilling and training needs. I will share with you 10 key findings from our conference series. We will then give life to these findings by hearing from organizations and women who can relate to them. And after that, we will deliver policy recommendations. So without any further delays, here are 10 policy findings. Ukrainian women-owned businesses account for over 50% of Ukraine's tax base. Women reinvest 80% of their profits into families and communities, which is huge. Ukrainian labor laws, rooted in Soviet-era policies, continue to hinder women's full participation in the economy. Ukrainian women-owned businesses have limited access to digital tools, training, and reliable internet. Ukrainian women businesses face a high volume of cyber attacks with limited access to cybersecurity tools and training. Women entrepreneurs face significant barriers in accessing capital. Many women lack awareness of available mechanisms and the skills needed to navigate complex financial landscapes. Persistent social biases hinder women's access to opportunities. Women's mental health needs remain unaddressed, and they are compounded by caregiving responsibilities and trauma of war. Damaged infrastructure and inefficient logistics significantly impact women-owned businesses. And lastly, Ukrainian women-owned businesses require targeted training in digital marketing, e-commerce, and financial management. So these are the 10 findings, and now let's give life to these findings. Please let me introduce you to Dr. Revi Sterling, who is the Technical Director for the Women in the Digital Ecosystem Fund, a White House initiative to close the gender and technology gap. Previously, Revi developed and ran USAID Women Connect Challenge, another presidential program that successfully spanned 3 administrations. Revi, the floor is yours.
Hi, everybody. Good morning. And I certainly want to say thank you for letting me be part of this. And thank you very much, Lauren Grubbs from USAID, who put me in touch with this amazing group of Kate and now a bunch of new friends and colleagues. So let me just put up a slide here. If A few little slides this afternoon for you. All right, hold on. Let's make sure you don't need to see. Sorry about that. The desktop lions are coming. All right. Does that look okay to everybody? I can't see. Wonderful, wonderful. Okay, so we'll get started from here. So hello and welcome again. I'm Revi Sterling, and I'm the technical director of a USAID and Gates Foundation initiative called Women in the Digital Economy Fund. And like all of us here, I'm a huge advocate of initiatives that focus on increasing women's participation in the digital economy. And I'm here to set the stage for the real experts who will share the strategies best suited to help Ukrainian women shape their futures by sharing some of the ways that the digital economy can enable them on their entrepreneurial and professional paths. I'm going to start off today with a global view of the women in the digital economy and then narrow it to Ukraine, where today's much more amazing speakers will pick up with the findings and recommendations from this series of conferences. So in the early 2000s, the eBay mom became the symbol and moniker of women doing things differently and benefiting economically from it. From rural women wanting to expand their home kitchen into a culinary drop and ship business, to women looking to profit from the sale of their childhood model horse collection, like me, to women creating their first global storefront. We have eBay moms and eBay, and the use of online marketplaces greatly increased during COVID-19 in places where connectivity was good and markets were active. And while I do not know Connie, I do know Ruby well. And Ruby pivoted her local printing shop into an Instagram store when stores were forced to close, when physical stores were forced to close. And she gained a huge new customer base across Kenya. Now she has her physical store, her online marketplace, and the income to upgrade her silk screening equipment and supplies. From another perspective, COVID was heartbreaking for the champions of digital inclusion. We witnessed millions of women going offline for a variety of reasons: economic downturns and the opportunistic dismantling of women's rights and freedoms in many countries. And only now are we returning, women are returning online in the same numbers as pre-COVID levels. But for those who could take advantage of the digital economy, it was a boon that continues to grow. And now there are thousands of local, regional, and global programs designed to assist women in digital and entrepreneurship upskilling. So eBay and Instagram aside, the economic data tell us four things. One, that women are highly entrepreneurial, and we know that. Two, that the jobs of the future will be digital by design. And although I'd say really the future is here, a 2023 survey of US job listings online found that 92% of all positions at all levels required some sort of digital skill. And that's a sample size of 43 million online job postings. Three, that women need to embrace digital technologies in the service of economic empowerment, which will also hopefully create significant gains in closing the global gender digital divide. For context, in low-income countries, just 1/5 of women have access to the internet as compared to 1/3 of men. And women make up the majority of the 2 billion people that remain offline and on the far side of the digital economy and its opportunities. Ukraine has long been a leader in women's digital inclusion, but again, this is the global picture. And four, the gender digital divide remains vast. And if we follow the current trajectory, low and middle income countries are on the track to lose out on an estimated $500 billion in the next 5 years due to women's digital exclusion. And for comparison, that's about the same as the annual GDP of the United Arab Emirates and Singapore. So we could keep going with the numbers, but how do we really address this? And there are numerous reports like this one on the screen that discuss the challenges and opportunities for women in the digital economy. And they essentially suggest the same high-level recommendations listed here and some of the ones we've talked about in the opening. And these recommendations have many conferences of their own. Each of these, could be whole degree tracks. And I'm sure we've all been to many conferences that cover these things. But the takeaway at the macro level is that the more that this set of recommendations are realized and supported, the stronger the foundation for catalyzing women's digital empowerment and more women benefiting from the digital economy. It really boils down to this. Women need to be able to access and use digital technologies for whatever their lines of business, formal employment, gig work from remote places, and entrepreneurial careers. And this is a cycle that reinforces itself. Digital skilling leads to greater income, greater autonomy, greater resilience, and greater gender equality. And germane to today's event, being an active part of the digital economy leads to greater opportunities for Ukrainian women and thus Ukraine writ large. And this slide shows the promise of creating more digital opportunities in Ukraine, which, as you can see, are huge. Adding $7 billion to the GDP, creating over 200,000 jobs in the tech and digital sectors alone. Women need to benefit from these projections, so they need to be at the digital table from today forward. We know that a strong digital economy will play a critical role in rebuilding the war after providing services, infrastructures, and opportunities to rebuild social and economic systems. And while the war continues, there is so much that is possible now because of three things that Ukraine has: connectivity, a deep commitment to innovation, and women who are change agents. And this trifecta can set the path for economic growth now and more going forward. Not only do digitally empowered women earn more, our friends at Harvard report that women who are digital entrepreneurs invest 90% of their earnings back into the communities and families, whereas men reinvest between 30 and 40%. So putting building blocks in place for women to more fully participate in the digital economy it's just good business. And this is why I love the tagline on the WMarketplace homepage, that the digital economy is the economic engine for women. So if that is the future, what about the present? I'm extremely grateful for the women behind the great organization, Women in Digital Transformation, or Women in WinDT. I'm not sure if they're here today, for taking me through the reality of women in Ukraine and technology in detail. The good news is the Ukraine has a small gender digital divide. It's much more of a rural versus urban divide. The bad news is that fewer women are buying smartphones and data due to a loss of income due to the war. Also, as we stated, Ukraine's internet connectivity has been repeatedly attacked, as we know. But the good news is the telecom sector has been very innovative in building back better. And there have been significant international investments in the telecom sector in the last 2 years. Another piece of good news is that DIA, the platform from the previous slide, just gets stronger and stronger as the national hub of digital inclusion. And it was named one of the best inventions in 2024 by Time Magazine for effectively and efficiently moving so many critical and civil services online. It also offers a huge range of digital literacy and upskilling courses, which can be accessed on a smartphone or through some of the 3,000 digital education hubs that the Ministry of Digital Transformation has established in Ukraine's libraries across the country. So the opportunities are there and ripe for reaching more women. And we've got to keep creating on-ramps to enter the digital economy. And this is why supporting women in becoming digital entrepreneurs is absolutely vital to a vital Ukraine. And I'm delighted to turn this over to my colleagues, and I hope we can work together to increase women's participation in the digital economy everywhere.
Revi, thank you so much for this interesting and informative presentation. I love that expression, women need to take place at the digital table for the benefit of everyone. So this is so obvious, but still not happening fully. So we will make sure to highlight it and underline it and pass it along with our policy recommendations to everyone we can. So thank you so much. And now let's welcome Elena Polomoshnova, who is the managing director at Deliotte, responsible for global health practices focusing on organization and workforce strategies, leadership development, and organizational performance improvement. She will present us with Deliottes findings related to workforce development in Ukraine. Elena, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much for having me, Agnes. I'm pleased to every opportunity I have to talk about Ukraine, women in the economy. I do my best to participate. So just to maybe root to ground what I'm going to talk about for the next 10 minutes. in reality, I'll share with everyone that Deloitte has been leading or implementing a technical assistance project in Ukraine that is called Health Reform Support, to support the Ministry of Health of Ukraine and other stakeholders in the healthcare sector to implement a broad-based health reform over the past 7 years. And our work in Ukraine was focused for years on the healthcare sector. That's where my first impressions are coming from. That's where I have like deep data and knowledge and studies and conclusions and things that we tried, things that did not work, or things that we learned from that did work. But last year, we stepped back as a firm and we did a study. And as a result of that study, my colleagues and I published a paper that I will share with everyone after this call, that is called Investing in Ukraine's Human Capital: How to Rebuild and Reimagine the Workforce in Ukraine. The reason for that study and for that effort was that in the marketplace, in media, you hear a lot of very smart people talking about how many hundreds of billions of dollars will be needed to rebuild the economy of Ukraine. What has not been really quantified, and there's no whole country strategy, is how many people will be needed, what kind of skills, where those people need to be located to support those hundreds of billions of dollars that will hopefully flow into Ukrainian economy. And that's what we've done. So I'll focus for the next few minutes, I'll focus on what we found about the workforce and some of the ideas. Obviously, it doesn't cover everything that needs to be covered, but at least for Deloitte, we found some actionable ideas that can help at this time. So first of all, before the war, and maybe going back 5-10 years back, there are strengths of Ukrainian workforce that are undoubtedly set Ukraine for success. That includes a very high level of population, including higher education degree. Women's participation in the economy has been on the upswing for the past 10 years. So the numbers are, if in 2011, only 7% of women were participating in tech industry. In 2024, now we look at 25-30% of women who are taking managerial or leadership position in the organizations in tech industry. So those are good, those are strengths of the workforce. There are also significant challenges of the workforce, even before COVID hit, even before the war. Those are aging population, the lowest fertility rate in Central Europe and Eastern Europe, and significant out-migration even before the war. So the population on our watch, the population went from almost 40 million people to much closer to 30 million people as a whole population. When the war started in 2022, an unprecedented level of migration happened. There are different numbers out there, and I was confused why we see different numbers. 7 million people left the country, 6 million left the country. It's dynamic situation. People are moving, right? People are persistent entities, they move. So we probably won't have a exact number, but it's a huge percent of the population that left. And think about those who are overseas, those are women and children. Those children already, for the past 3 years, they are participating in foreign economies, in foreign educational systems. They go to foreign schools, they learn foreign languages, they are integrating in foreign societies. It will be very difficult for Ukraine to bring that youth back. That's the future workforce of Ukraine. So here we go. This is one huge challenge right there. How do you bring those mothers who took those kids out of the country? And how do you bring the youth back to the country? In addition to that, it is a known fact that 1/3 of the population in total has moved. People moved from the eastern part of the country to the north and west. In eastern part of the country, heavy industries were concentrated before the war. The skill sets that people brought with them to the parts of the country that those skills are not needed create a huge misalignment of the skill sets, and the gap creates huge challenge of reconnecting more people who moved with the economy and allowing them for opportunities to make living. Same happened with people who moved from the south part of Ukraine, people who the areas where the focus was on agriculture, right? So there's no direct application to those skill sets in the places where people landed. A huge challenge of realigning and reconnecting people with the opportunity to participate in the economy. And I heard previous speakers talking about digital. Digital is one of the platforms that would allow to do so. When it comes to the healthcare, I will go back to my direct kind of day-to-day work. And when it comes to the healthcare, the challenges that we see within the workforce are fewfold. One is it's a significant shortage of the doctors, of nurses. About 25% of open positions, of positions currently in the healthcare system have been vacant in 2022, 2023. It means that there are opportunities for people to participate in the healthcare, in the economy, but either people are not there or they're not where the jobs exist. So geographically, finding people and bringing them, incentivizing them to come to the places where the jobs are is another opportunity to help with the workforce. The next one is very difficult to fill those vacancies. The skill sets may or may not exist in country right now. And then there's an evidence of disproportional immigration of doctors who left the country, which means that it leaves the healthcare sector with unfilled positions and inability to provide services, the medical services to the population in need. We're in the situation when the need for those services has increased. So all that I realize that I am picturing a pretty dire situation, but the crisis creates opportunities. And there are opportunities to act today, act tomorrow, to help the situation. One is making better use of existing workforce. To make a better use of existing workforce is the economy has to rely on women. There are publications, or there have been a number of publications here in the US about women and the pictures of women now driving the trucks, women taking kind of coal mine jobs. All that is happening. But to do it at scale, I think the country really needs to have a strategy of how to quickly provide women with skills that are needed today and plug them in the economy where they are now, right? Not wait until the ideal situation, until people move. Act now. Who can we mobilize today? What are the pockets of women who can be working, who can be productive, who can contribute to the economy? That's one. Second thing, it's very important to protect vulnerable groups. There are mothers who were not working before the war. It is important to find them. They can work. They may be incentivized, and it can help them tremendously. right? So finding those, creating platforms for them to find about opportunities to get vocational trainings, to get skill development, to be oriented where there are needs, and bringing them back into the economy is definitely a big opportunity. And then stepping back and thinking about the whole country, it is very important to have a workforce strategy. There's no like whole country workforce strategy for the recovery of the economy, and that would be very, very important. And then definitely next step, aligning with the strategy, optimizing existing workforce, and then thinking about the biggest gaps and probably charting the roadmap on how to close the gap. So that's where our thinking is now. And thank you very much for this opportunity to share my thoughts with you guys.
Elena, those are amazing findings, and we know that the Ministry of Economy and the Ukrainian government echoes your findings and tries to find solutions. And it's important to know what the problems are in order to find those solutions, right? Because if we don't, even if it's not pleasant to hear sometimes, we want to know what's happening and what to do about it. So this is extremely important. And we know that you have a written copy or printed version of the workforce development report in Ukraine. So we would share it with our audience as well for maybe more detailed reading. But we so very much appreciate your participation. Thank you. And thank you for your work on workforce development in Ukraine, because it will become Ukraine's future. We need people to rebuild Ukraine. We need people to come back. We need to find out and answer the question how to make them come back. And we will hear from one of our colleagues who actually recently returned to Ukraine to ask her questions, what made her come back and what the government can do more to have more people like her coming back. So thank you very much for your perspective. We appreciate it. And we are looking forward to staying in touch with you and Deliotte. And so now I will invite our colleague Anna Zmiievska, the founder of Anzy Homes, to underline the relevance of our findings for her business. Anna, please join us.
Hello. Well, thank you for inviting me. I'm very proud to be here and to present my business and also to be the voice of other Ukrainian women entrepreneurs. I'm sharing my screen and hope you can see now. Yes? Yeah, okay. Okay, thank you. Thank you again. My name is Anna Zmiievska, and I'm a founder of Anzy Home, a Ukrainian brand which is represented online. So we are part of e-commerce and digital economy. And I would like to talk today about the impact of exporting on Ukrainian women entrepreneurs, because first, my business, my enterprise is fully export oriented. Second, I'm working a lot with other women and other entrepreneurs from Ukraine who are exporting or would like to export. I'm a co-founder of Ukrainian Alliance of Craft Manufacturers of Home Decor, where we have a lot of activities, and I talk a lot with other entrepreneurs. I'm mentoring creative businesses and startups and women businesses. Now I'm a mentor of women starting businesses, women who had impacted by the war in Ukraine. And I participate in various communities of Ukrainian entrepreneurs and women entrepreneurs. And I'm talking about all this to understand that I will talk about my business and my case. And also I would like to raise some questions and barriers which we are tackling. And by saying we, I built not only on my personal experience, but also on the feedback and context which I see when I communicate with other businesses in Ukraine on their way to export mainly. Anzy Home is a Ukrainian brand of hand-knitted and hand-crocheted home decor and kids products. We had been established in 2018, and it had been started from just a knitting hobby of my mom actually, which for several years had transformed into the small enterprise where we have 20 people involved, 21 actually. And our mission is to create unique, high-quality items. We are fully handmade business, and this handmade business is also has a social impact because we employ Ukrainian women for kind of nice and easy and well-paid job. As I say, meaningful job, and we pay attention to attracting to our work women who are from vulnerable groups like IDPs or mothers, single mothers, etc. In our portfolio, what we make, different kind of knitted home decor, as you see on the slide. I wouldn't say more a lot about this, but here you can find the links to our website and social media and see all the products, what we have, different categories, different styles, and everything is designed in-house and manufactured in Ukraine. And we sell mostly outside of Ukraine. So we have only 2% of in-house sales actually, and most of the sales go to other countries. Among these countries, 87% goes to United States, and only a limited part to other regions. But it doesn't mean that our products are not popular. It does mean that our resources and marketing efforts now all goes to this specific market. We have plans on development to other regions, but at this point, our key market is United States. And it's clear because it's a big market with one language, one currency, in comparison, for example, with European markets, where you can see a lot of different peculiarities country by country. This graph shows our growth from 2018 until now. It's a very good time, at the beginning of the year, to show the progress because we just finished the annual evaluation of 2024, and I'm very proud of these figures because something that had been started in 2018 from the small hobby, and despite the fact that we had to relocate our manufacturing in 2022 from Kharkiv, from east of Ukraine, and stop our manufacturing due to the war for some period of time, we relocated, we restarted, and we continue growing. And our growth, as you see, is much more drastic in comparison to the period before war. And this is all due to the exports. This is all because of we are exporting oriented. And Ukrainian, before war, we had a higher share of inside sales in Ukraine, but Ukrainian market decreased, and because we are exporting and we develop export, we were managed to survive, and not only to survive, but to grow and to increase our turnover and to create new jobs for Ukrainian women in Ukraine currently. Yes. Why? I think we managed to do so because we have market opportunities, and we try to match to the market trends, to conscious consumption, some sustainability, and we have recycled products. In general, e-commerce is developed, and we are in e-commerce, so we are selling online, and market of home decor is growing. We have some inside strengths. I would say this is about design of our products, about the high quality of content, because we sell online and we put a lot of efforts into presenting these products very nice on our channels. We work on brand positioning, and we are not sometimes when I work with Ukrainian small and craft manufacturers, it is not about brand, but we put a lot of efforts on brand development also. We are socially responsible, and we started to tell about it. We had been started to be socially responsible from the very beginning, but now it's a part of our marketing strategy. and we have a very good team, which I'm very proud of. And we work a lot. We do not stop. We do a lot of different testings, analytics. We work with our customers. We really try to make our customers happy every day by offering a good product, by offering good conditions for shipping, for customer support, some sales and everything. And we are very proud that we have a high level of customer satisfaction, but it's because of we work on this. Now, last year, we had very big achievement because we managed to bring good stock to United States. So we are not shipping from Ukraine everything. We have a stock of popular products, which makes us more stronger and more competitive. But it required a lot of effort and investment, but still we manage. And we work on developing B2B partnerships, so not only sell online, but also to work with partners. At the same time, for sure, everything is not so easy, and as usual. And I would like to highlight some threats which we have, some barriers which we have. And by saying it means that this is also I see not only in my business, but in other businesses whom I contact with. So first big barrier is that when we are in e-commerce and we are selling from Ukraine to export, we are very lacking of familiar and reliable payment gateways, so like payment system which are not possible to create by Ukrainian business, like Stripe, PayPal for business, Klarna, etc. And it's a big issue because buyers from United States and from Europe, they do not feel very confident and do not see very reliable to pay through some systems which they do not know very well, and they're not very popular. For sure, there are some alternatives which we use, but it decreases our conversion rate. And if all our marketing effort and budget goes to convince customer to buy, and finally customers see some unreliable payment method, it makes us very weak. This is the first large problem I've seen. Second barrier is the competition, for sure, because yes, the Asian manufacturers, I can talk about the niche of kids products and home decor and furniture, which I know very well, but I know that in other sectors it's the same. But competition is with Asian manufacturers is tough, and still since we have positive trends on conscious consumption, on people choosing some qualitative products versus price, but still it's very difficult to compete, especially on large marketplaces where there are a lot of Asian made and cheap products. And also there are streamlined and very defined supply chains from Asia and not from Ukraine yet. And this is like external barrier. In some kind of internal barrier is that to enter markets like United States and European Union market, we in Ukraine also have a lot of internal knowledge gaps in terms of highly regulated items, also like kids items, for example, in my case. So issues of certification, issues of some policies and regulations are not very clear, and there are no expertise in Ukraine, no people who can help you really. So you need to go directly to experts from these markets, which is also very expensive. And one big sub group of this competition is Unfortunately, absence of established brand made in Ukraine, like when we go for Italian fashion or watches from Switzerland, this is not very well developed yet. We are very committed to overcome this barrier, to prove that Ukrainian products are good, qualitative, and Ukrainian entrepreneurs are very very responsible, etc. But still, we need to do a lot to build this brand made in Ukraine. And I'm also traveling a lot for different exhibitions and trade shows and speak to customers directly. I communicate with customers, and I know that being from Ukraine now is often our weakness, because it's actually high risk to build business relationships with Ukrainian manufacturers because of the conditions in Ukraine. And we usually we have a lot of we attract a lot of attention just because we are in Ukraine and we can do business in Ukraine. It's very interesting, but when we come on to direct relations, business relations, it's very difficult to convince buyers to buy from us, to invest money, and to go for and to convince that our products worth this risk. And the last one group of issues which I see is internal business culture and business practices which we use in Ukraine. They are quite different from other economies, from European Union countries. So Ukrainian entrepreneurs usually have a lack of business culture, business communication. It's very popular to have a private entrepreneur for фізична особа підприємець. It's a legal form in Ukraine, which is unclear for partners who is like you're personally, or you're physical, natural person, or you're a legal person. When we try to communicate, it's very different. Also, in Western economies, delayed payments is very popular because they have a lot of credits, etc. We do not have this, and we cannot afford this. And this next rising issue from this, that we have lack of access to working capital. For sure, there are a lot of opportunities in Ukraine for grants from different governmental support, training programs, and we use them, and we are very thankful for different funds and programs that they support Ukrainian entrepreneurs. But still, these programs are very limited, and you cannot have access really to money, which we are lacking this money usually to develop. And last one is taxation. That, for example, what we're tackling is that we have to pay extra 20% of VAT for paid promotion online. So we are paying 20% more than our American competitors because of Ukrainian regulation. And we are small businesses usually have this legal form of private entrepreneur. We are not VAT payers, and to become VAT payer is very difficult when you're a small business, because you need accounting to include accounting to this. What we do, I also do a lot, as I said, I'm mentoring, I'm supporting business. This is one of the projects which I'm co-founded last year. This is Alliance of Craft Manufacturers. We work with different Ukrainian businesses, organize joint participation, exhibition, trade show. We do a lot of trainings, internal trainings, in order to increase this knowledge gap, how to work, how to communicate, how to export, etc., etc., and work a lot on creation of this positive export brand of Ukraine. What would help us to grow further and export more from external some support? This is just a summarizing of what I said on previous slides. It's availability of reliable payment systems in Ukraine, which will build a lot of trust, I think. Also continuing education, knowledge building in Ukraine to improve business culture, to improve expertise on working, on exporting, and working with other economies, and some simplification in this business management procedures and taxation that also could help us to be more competitive and to work in business rules closer to our export partners, and also can give our more strengths. Yeah, this was my slide. I'm very thankful that I had the chance to raise the voice of Ukrainian entrepreneurs today and to show that we can, but we have some barriers which we need to overcome, thanks to that just support of our policies and other external partners. Welcome to any questions. You can join and connect. Thank you so much.
Anna, thank you so very much. We are truly proud to partner with you because we witness firsthand your growth. And this is amazing, that second or third slide that you showed, how tremendously export impacted your business. It's just amazing. I believe we met you in the beginning of 2023 when you just started going up and up. So you are an example. Like so we are proud of you, number one and foremost, but you are an example to other women entrepreneurs that export can be a tool for your growth and nothing is impossible. And we also so appreciate that you give back to your community by mentoring. We know that you are mentoring women entrepreneurs now, that you are helping your community. So just one question, because we don't have that much time to ask you more, and I'm sure that more women from listening and tuning in today would love to stay in touch with you and maybe ask you questions separately if you would be willing to share your contact information. But I would ask, what can we do? What programs can we do more of to support your community, to support you, to have more Annas helping Ukrainian women grow?
Yeah, I think that, as I said, that building this knowledge and expertise inside Ukraine on how to work on the level of United States market and European markets, it's very important, because when I had participated in WMarketplace program, I took a lot of insights. My marketing team took a lot of insights from the real cases and real from people from those markets. Because we are in Ukraine, it's very difficult to understand customer behavior and all these tricks. And it was very important to understand how it works from inside on this market. And also regulation, certification, this kind of knowledge we lack in Ukraine. We need to increase it. And also we work with Ukrainian craft manufacturers, and we try to bring them to foreign markets. And what we see is that really knowledge on marketing, on brand positioning, on global scale, knowledge of even business communication and pricing, etc., is very low. We have very good brands, very cool products, very good people we can work with, but in general, this level of awareness, what I said in aspects, what I said, it's very low. So I would suggest to have more programs and to attract experts from these foreign markets to bring knowledge to Ukraine and to make Ukrainian entrepreneurs closer to the level of the more competitive. Yes.
So the bottom line is we will continue expanding our program because it proved to be a great initiative. We will keep building on it, educating Ukrainian women and then letting them into the US market, which usually opens a door to other markets as well. Because like the saying is, once you are able to establish your export presence in the US, you can go anywhere, So we will continue doing that. We appreciate your perspective and looking forward to staying in touch and then seeing that chart exploding up to the sky. So thank you, Anna, very much.
I cannot add, I cannot add that also access to capital is also very important, because you need to grow as a business and you need these like grants is very good, but grants doesn't give you working capital. some investment and this kind of. I understand it's risky now. It's risky to go to Ukraine, but still, it's something which would be very important, yeah, in Ukraine.
More reasonable loans, more grants, and more working capital for small women-owned businesses and businesses in general. All right, Anna, thank you very much. We could talk with you for the entire day, but now we have to invite one more speaker from one more Ukrainian woman entrepreneur, Yuliia Buhlak, the founder and CEO of FISKIN. And Yuliia will tell us why she decided to return to Ukraine and what it would take to make her business succeed in Ukraine. This is a perfect example for us. We want more companies, obviously, like stated before, returning to Ukraine. So Yuliia, please take it away and tell us what made you decide to return to Ukraine now.
Thank you very much for this warm introduction. It's a big pleasure to be here and my biggest honor to present and to motivate other women to do the same. I'm already 2 weeks in Ukraine and extremely happy, absolutely no doubts on doing so. So let me share now my story of resilience and what made me to return back to Ukraine. I will share my screen. Can you see my screen now?
Yes, Yuliia, we can see it.
Okay. So my name is Yuliia Buhlak, and I am a founder of FISKIN. It's a sustainable fashion startup where I make accessories from real fish leather. Here you can see my products. Fish leather is a sustainable alternative to leather and plastic leathers. Fish leather is extremely strong, durable. It has fantastic smell, to the contrary to someone's expectations. And fish used in our designs is not killed for leather. It's used for food. Fish leather has extreme potential. Let's say just in Norway, they have underused potential of 5 billion skins, which can be converted into 90 million purses, which could be worth of 220 billion US dollars. I started the business in Ukraine, but very shortly before the war interrupted my plans. It was a startup, and we had to relocate with my daughter to Norway. And this was my startup kit, basically. Can you see my slides?
Yes, we can see.
Yes, Yuliia, we can.
So you can see the startup kit.
Yeah, we've got it.
Thank you. Yeah, so this was a second version of FISKIN. I had to restart my business from scratch in Norway, which was very complicated, considering that because of the war, all our savings and funds, which I could spend for relaunching, was spent. So I was using extremely all tools I had, communication, networking in the kindergarten, with my neighbors, with the hobbies. It helped me a lot to establish networks in a country where I have never lived before. I used creativity a lot. I even hang my company's logo on the fence. I was using all possible tools. I was multitasking. I was working on several jobs to invest in my company. And here I want to say that in Norway, grants and funds are quite difficult to get. So I had to be very creative, and I collected $2,500 for a sewing machine. Because of that, I was working a lot, supplying products to my customers. And FISKIN, at some point, FISKIN started growing as a snowing ball. I got 30% of customers returning. It was extreme success because of the company, which has never been known in Norway. It's quite difficult to promote because Norwegians, they usually look for products for quite long time before they start buying. Many journals, popular newspapers in Norway give a word about FISKIN on the media. And this all was achieved without any investments, any funds. And eventually FISKIN got rewarded by Karen Elleman, got higher prize from Karen Elleman, who is Secretary General for the Nordic Council of Ministers. And all this resilience story was made with the help of my networks, my friends who helped me with my daughter, because I moved there alone with my child, and I didn't have this support network like my husband, my parents, sisters, brothers, and friends. So it was extremely challenging being alone in a foreign country. But we managed, and I met my amazing team who are also working in fashion and marketing. So FISKIN was growing, and at some point I thought, okay, we are ready for the next step, for investments, for growing, raising capital. And I sat down and I decided what to do next, what's the plan, how to scale up business in Norway. I had to weigh pros and cons. And unfortunately, by that time, I was extremely burned out because of the heavy workload I got as a single mother in Norway. So I started thinking, how can I scale up without having much resources and physical capacity, being alone with the child with no help? I started thinking about pros of doing business in Norway, which is an amazing learning environment. I completed 1,000 of different courses. They have amazing digitalization. Everything is paperless. Everything is so quick. You don't need to go anywhere to the tax office to confirm anything, to sign anything. Everything is digitalized. The community, my friends, my neighbors, everyone is so supportive. The local government, they are very open. Although, again, as I say, it was extremely difficult to get any startup grant, any small money just to start to buy some equipment, basic materials. But I had very loyal customers, those who are educated on sustainability. They were aware about sustainability needs, and they were supporting this initiative, which was really good and for FISKIN growth. And also in Norway, there are tons of different integrations for business. Very nice simple accounting systems. Everything is integrated with governmental services, with the marketing and advertisements. And also a very important safe environment for digital services. But on the other hand, everything is extremely expensive, high cost of production, including labor cost, material cost, because everything is export. Most things are exported, from the smallest materials to even business cards, everything what you use for business, everything it takes time to order and wait when it get exported from another country. Again, it's a question how sustainable it is for my business, and then it takes time. It takes extra cost on import taxes, and again, the logistics is quite challenging because it also takes time, especially if you are not in the capital. Difficulties to get grants. Then, because in Norway everything is extremely expensive, including even rent of office. So big investments are needed and funds are consumed very quickly. Yeah, and then the most significant part of this equations is that there is no family. So at some point, I decided to return back home. I haven't been thinking about this option because of the difficult critical situation where I couldn't come back with my child. But it has become so difficult in Norway being without my husband, without my family. So I started thinking about relocating to Ukraine, started checking how the system works, the logistics, what is the cost for production, is there any available grants? And I was so impressed how far within these 2 years Ukraine went in terms of logistics. There are some companies which ship into US in amazingly fast speeds. Also, there are a million of different grants available. The most important is that there is my network of helpers with my child. That was extremely important for me. And then also things like marketing, production, pictures for models, everything is much more available in terms of time and also in terms of financials. So here I am in Ukraine, ready to third relaunch of FISKIN, quite inspired. And especially after hearing story of Anna. Thank you very much for attention. I'm open for questions.
Yuliia, this is really inspiring. Well, maybe let's open the floor to a couple questions from the audience. I mean, I don't want to myself continue asking questions. So Susan and Kate, let's see if we have questions from the audience. What I would ask Yuliia is, what would help you now most? Like you said that family support is huge, because then it gives you more free time to concentrate on your business and you feel safer. And obviously this is a better environment to grow. But in terms of expanding your business, like for example, if you wanted to follow in Anna's steps and expand your export to the United States or make connections, what right now would be the most helpful thing for you?
I think the main thing, I would need a marketing budget.
Money. Okay. So working capital to expand.
Yes.
Okay.
That would be number one thing I would consider. But even though considering my story, I'm ready to fight till the end without anything. But it would be really helpful if I could get funds.
Well, if you were able to survive and expand and start growing in Norway under such difficult circumstances, we have no doubt that you will be able to, continue growing and expanding. And like I said, following Anna's steps, and hopefully we will see your products in the US. So that's our hope. And Susan and Kate, do we have time for a couple questions from the audience? Do we see any questions or no? If no, that's okay. We can save them for later, but no questions, right? All right. So Yuliia, thank you very much. Please stay in touch with us. Now you have our contact info. Let us know how we can be helpful. We have presentations from our previous conferences. We have our resources that we can share in terms of information on the US market. So, and then it applies to everyone. Please stay in touch and then let us know how we can help in terms of information, how to expand to the United States. But with that, I will now thank Yuliia and invite Kate Eisler to start our conversation, informal conversation, I would call it, on key policy recommendations that we have for our colleagues and policymakers in the United States and Ukraine. And what we will do, I will, based on what we've done in this conference series, I will ask Kate questions. So we will start there, right, Kate? So what you see on the screen, you have 4 categories of key recommendations that WMarketplace prepared based on our conference series. And Kate, I will ask, let's start with policy and regulatory barriers. Can you provide some thoughts on examples of policy or regulatory changes you have encountered or heard that could be successful here?
Absolutely. And thank you, Agnes. This is such an honor. And this has been such an honor and such a fascinating series of discussions that we've had over the last few months, and really has been wonderful to put the Ukrainian women entrepreneurs right at the center of this. And so we talk so big sometimes that we really endeavored to come close to these entrepreneurs and really understand what are the levers that can help them. And I think that you've seen some examples of this with both Yuliia and Anna this morning, and we have seen that. And so if we dive into our recommendations and talk about policies, there are things that we have learned from these women working in Ukraine and those that have moved in and out, as Yuliia said, around things that would help them. And I think that you heard about tax reforms, both the challenges that both of these women have expressed in terms of what are the policies and what are the tax policies in Ukraine that are detrimental to them and make it difficult. And I think, we are looking at some of the other markets and what are those tax policies that we think could help, things that governments could do in terms of making some positive steps in terms of incentives for investing in women-owned businesses, both in terms of capital investment, but also as suppliers, and some rewards and some tax benefits, not just to the women, but for the other businesses that will do businesses with the women. And I think that that's a really key piece to this. I think that there are regulations that affect women that we are seeing, and we'll talk more about as we get through this, that are changing. Yuliia said, things have progressed very quickly in the last few years, and there's still miles to go. But we have some things that, if you invest directly in women and you see that happen, there are some very tangible results, and they're very quick results. And so some of those policy reforms that look at supporting women-owned businesses very specifically and supporting them from a government and through other businesses, I think are really critical.
And then, Kate, specifically, how do you think governments or organizations can better support entrepreneurs in overcoming these barriers?
I think that there's some specific examples that we've seen, investing in very specific programs that are targeted to segments of industry and segments to the population we've seen. So we have examples in other countries where countries have invested very specifically in training women and supporting women organizations, and they have seen direct impact on their local economies, their national economies from that, and that can be directly related. And so those sorts of things that we've talked about, education programs that support these women entrepreneurs very directly, policies that would support these women very directly, and expanding those programs past the large cities. We've heard Elena talk about the rural issues, and Revi talk about the divide is metropolitan and rural very specifically in Ukraine. And so really putting that at the forefront will make some big differences.
All right. That makes perfect sense, Kate. And in terms of our second bucket of recommendations, what have you observed about trade missions that show they can be impactful for women entrepreneurs?
There is a big effort. I know in the US, I have been fortunate enough to attend and be a part of trade missions. And I think that giving light and air to seeing other countries and how things work and bringing those policies back. So we've heard a lot about the displaced women and seen, what they've learned and what they've gotten. And Elena talked a lot about the attracting those people to come back to Ukraine. So giving some light to how do we replicate some of those policies? How do we implement some of those business practices, those cultural practices within Ukraine that are happening outside, I think are really critical. Making connections with those, the experiences that women are having outside the country, and really the awareness to things like bringing payment platforms into Ukraine is really critical. Having the CII digital infrastructure that we talked about with the Ministry of Digital Innovation in Ukraine, making that more pervasive, I think is also going to be really critical, and tie that to the efforts that the government and the women entrepreneurs need.
Okay, then a follow-up question to that. What role do you think public-private partnerships can play in supporting women entrepreneurs?
I think that this is probably the single most important thing that is happening. We are seeing that when you build capacity in a local economy, bringing experts in from other places to teach and to expand their networks and their knowledge into Ukraine is critical. We see that happening on a long-term, big scale with organizations like USAID. That is their mission. They go in and they put, tremendous amount of capital in a market to build capacity. But we also are seeing things on a micro level and that are making impact immediately, not just long term. And so I will tell you the example of the WMarketplace working in concert with the U.S. Department of Commerce and SABIT. We have implemented our e-commerce training program, our accelerator program, through the partnership with SABIT, and we are about to go into 2 more countries and 3 more programs. And so we have reached, with just that program alone, on site, we've reached over 100 women. And we have reached virtually another probably 75 to 100 women with that program and seeing those skills. And so what we see, both Yuliia and Anna we've been fortunate to have them through our program, and we have seen some really dramatic impacts on their businesses immediately from that exposure, from those opportunities, and, sharing that. And so we hope to expand that to more women entrepreneurs in Ukraine. And we think that that is an economic boom for everyone, as this, it's a very specific program that can make a difference. And we want to do more of that.
And, policymakers sometimes see the big picture and look for big ideas, which are great, but doing something immediately on a smaller scale, it's as impactful, because, like you said, meeting with 100 displaced women in Poland will make a huge difference for those 100 women. And so we don't have to wait for huge initiatives to make something happen, right? So
yeah, Agnes, I think that that's such an important piece. I think that's probably one of the most important pieces, that we do think on a large scale. But if we start to think about how we build that capacity every day with these women entrepreneurs, and you look at the tax base that those represent in Ukraine, it's huge. It's over 50%. And so when we think about those women's contribution to the economy, Revi talked about it, they invest 90% back into the country and back into their families. And so we want to help those people right away and build a stronger economy for Ukraine.
Rebuilding the economy from the ground up, that's the idea, and supporting women while doing so, knowing how important they are.
Absolutely.
All right, moving to digital and financial programs. We heard a lot about the importance of digital and financial literacy over the course of this conference series. In your experience, what kind of impact can these types of programs have for women-owned businesses?
I think that these programs, teaching women and giving them awareness to some of the basic digital tools is an indicator on their success. And so we've seen in study after study and in real time that when women use digital tools to run their business, they are like 25% more successful. Their sustainability is there. And so providing them with very specific training on, basic accounting and accounting tools like, Intuit and QuickBooks. We could do CRM, customer management, that gives them access to customers globally. It gives them a much better footing to access the digital economy, as Revi said. And so what we heard from women is that these are things that they need. They want to understand how to sell in e-commerce. They want to understand how to export. They also want to really understand things that are acute in Ukraine, like cybersecurity threats. That is a huge problem with women in Ukraine, women entrepreneurs specifically. And so to give them very targeted programs that facilitate that learning and facilitate that knowledge will be huge and get them into that digital economy and help make their businesses sustainable.
Mm-hmm. And how would you prioritize the types of trainings or skills that would be most impactful?
It is very hard as an entrepreneur myself. I think, I have very specific needs and I have priorities, and that those are sometimes shared, but not shared with everyone. And so I think that that's the big challenge. What I would say for Ukraine is that we heard universally that they want information about digital tools and services. You heard much about payments, and that is a big piece. You heard about how they want to scale their businesses through this digital divide. But I also think that having really grounded programs expanded to the rural markets. We know that there is such business opportunity both for women and Ukraine as a whole outside the metropolitan areas that we want to make sure that we address that and get that rural divide happening and get those programs expanded.
Like Revi said, bringing women to digital table is our goal, and how we do it, right, is up to grabs, but we need to make it happen. That's the point.
Absolutely.
All right, and then the next important bucket of recommendations includes mental health and childcare support. So we've heard a lot about that, which is hugely important for women in order for them to be able to grow their businesses, right? So what did you hear over the course of these conferences that let you include mental health as one of the recommendations?
So we went into these conferences very focused on the professional aspects of supporting these women, in all the things we've talked about in terms of how do we work on their business and what do we do? And what we heard very quickly is that without addressing all of the needs for those women, we're not going to progress. And mental health and family care was a huge segment of this, and it came up in every conference. And I have to say, being women, we were a little surprised. We were like, oh my gosh, this is the thing that has come up. But we also recognize that this is an issue across the country, both men and women, that needs to be addressed. As these women are working on their businesses, but have other constraints and other responsibilities that you heard, Yuliia talked about it very clearly in terms of how do we support that whole person to come together and be productive. And I think that we need to keep that at the forefront to say we need the opportunities that are there to support these women across the board, both professionally and personally within their families.
And what kind of childcare or mental health support system do you think those women need most?
So I think it's really interesting. In our first conference, we started to hear this, and we also had the Minister of Economy come in and talk about the new legislation that's passed. And she talked about the fact that there's new legislation allowing more flexibility for women with young children to work and travel professionally, which is a big step forward. And so when we start to see those things changing in the government, I think that those become huge opportunities, both from a developing in the childcare segment. There's a business opportunity as that opens up for women to access and the need for them to access childcare for very young children. And it also opens up the opportunity for entrepreneurs and working women to have more flexibility and to have good care solutions for their children. And so we are already seeing legislation that supports that. And I think we need to, again, bring that to the forefront and say, there are professional things, but there are life-changing things that are happening, and we hear that. And I would say we hear that a lot from women, but that is not an exclusive. We hear it from families, and we talked in one of our conferences to a veterans program that was talking about the very same things, the need for mental health, childcare, and family care.
That's hugely important, and we ourselves even haven't realized that before we started. Like Kate said, before we started our conference series, we didn't realize how important it is to highlight that aspect. So thank you, Kate, and then you will all see it in a written summary of the recommendations. But moving to infrastructure and technology access. We've heard from the Ukraine Mayors Club that areas outside of the larger cities don't have the same level of resources or investment. What recommendations are you making to address this problem?
I think that, we've heard it, and we've heard the rural metropolitan divide lots. And even in these recommendations, it's come up as a very consistent theme. And so, the Mayor's Club was a really important group because they talked about hundreds of districts within Ukraine and hundreds of collaborations within them that we could really tap into organizations that are already established in the country to have delivery of programs and expansion of programs from metropolitan cities into rural areas. And so I think that that is a big step in terms of infrastructure. There are groups and facilities to accept programs and accept learning and accept structure outside of the big cities. And I think that we just need to build awareness from organizations or to organizations that are outside of Ukraine of that fact.
And then what do you mean by access to technology, just to make sure that we are on the same page?
So, we as a modern world, we assume a lot of things in terms of our systems. And so we assume that we have power. We assume that we have cell service. And more around the world, internet access is becoming a utility. It's one of the big utilities that we count on. And so if I think about Ukraine has an amazing opportunity as they rebuild their infrastructure to improve the access to all of that infrastructure, to say, we can leapfrog and we can build a very strong infrastructure with inclusive of digital access and high-speed access. And so what we want to do is make sure that when we talk about digital access, we are talking about access to the internet, access to content, and access to devices that use that. And you heard Revi talk about the gap in the women that are online versus the men. And I think that that's an important piece to think about. And again, in Ukraine, rural versus cities.
Perfect. So this will summarize our short discussion on recommendations, and we will have a published written version of those recommendations for you to read. And then we also intend to share them with policymakers, both in the United States and Ukraine, as mentioned. So we hope to make a real impact, we don't intend it to be a discussion, just a discussion, but we want to take it farther. We want to continue this discussion, and then programs that we have been doing, similar programs going forward. So this is our last conference, but you will still see more of us, and we can promise you that. So we don't know when exactly, but you will. But just last but not least, we will invite our final speaker, Dr. Iryna Tytarchuk, who will tell us what would happen if all those recommendations were implemented in Ukraine. Dr. Tytarchuk, please take it away.
Дуже дякую, Агнес. Я дуже дякую усім за те, що поділилися ситуацією, яка у вас в бізнесах, ситуацією, яка у вас в проєктах, своїми ідеями. І для мене все звучало досить так, знаєте, підвищено і позитивно, особливо коли я побачила цифру Ані за 2024 рік. Я насправді дуже пишаюся, бо і Аня, і Юля були учасницями наших програм для жінок-підприємець. Я дуже пишаюсь тим, що вони дійсно знайшли свій крок, свій шлях і роблять такі кроки, не зупиняючись, бачачи і можливості для свого бізнесу і допомагаючи іншим. І той ентузіазм, з яким Юля працює над своїм бізнесом, я такого не зустрічала вже дуже-дуже давно. І так як вона вірить в свій продукт, напевно, не вірить і ніхто. Тому, якщо дійсно буде можливість допомогти їй з маркетинговим бюджетом, повірте, воно окупиться в багато-багато разів, тому що вона дійсно пишається своєю справою і вірить в неї. Я не маю такого оптимізму і позитиву. Скажу відверто, не маю, тому що в світлі останніх подій, які ми бачимо, особливо в пресі, і тих, які прилітають, на жаль, з американського ринку з приводу впровадження DEI і по компанії Макдональдс, і те, про що сказав Марк Цукерберг і інші компанії, які відмовляються від підходів. Відмовляються, це так, знаєте, голосно сказано через газети і журнали, заголовки статей, насправді не відмовляються, а змінюють підходи до DEI, то оці підходи до DEI мають, напевно, що відображатися і змінами в Україні. І тут питання в тому, що ми ще не дійшли до якогось найвищого етапу по підтримці жінок, різноманітності, інклюзивності, а нам вже треба щось змінювати в ньому. А ми ще не вирішили тих проблем, які вже накопичилися, і від яких ми маємо вже робити тренди в різноманітності і інклюзії. Тому тут дуже важливо розуміти всі ці процеси трошки стратегічно, не відштовхуючись від якогось окремого бізнесу, тому що окремий бізнес абсолютно не показник. І дійсно, як зазначила Кейт, велика різниця, я дякую за те, що ваша програма на це звернула увагу, велика різниця між регіонами і глобальним рівнем. Що для мене важливо і в цих рекомендаціях, які були озвучені, на що я би хотіла зупинитися, і що буде, якщо його не буде, що буде, якщо цього не відбудеться і не буде мати місце така підтримка. Насправді не буде ніякого розвитку, тому що дійсно жінки займають велику роль, дійсно жінок треба підтримувати, дійсно це вплив не тільки на економіку, а на і соціальні процеси, на інфраструктуру, на ментальне здоров'я всієї нації, не тільки жінок. І тут важливо їх підтримувати, розуміти їх запити і також розуміти їхні очікування. Для мене, що стосується ситуації в бізнесі, це ситуація, яку треба робити і вирішувати проблеми покроково. Не треба брати щось таке глобальне і стратегічне, вирішувати покроково. Дійсно, ми маємо проблеми з платіжною системою. Який вихід знайшли наші бізнеси? Вони реєструють підприємства за кордоном, Польща, Литва, Чехія і так далі, підключаються до їхньої системи, і це вигода економічна в тому числі для тих країн, а не для України. Україна має розуміти і підраховувати збиток від того, що таке відбувається. Так, це добре для наших жінок-підприємець, але прибуток від цих операцій акумулюється зовсім в іншій країні. Це логістика і податок зовнішньоекономічної діяльності. Є проблеми з цим, і Юля дуже позитивно сказала, що дуже добре все з доставкою, транспортуванням, логістикою всередині України. Є можливості, але коли ми починаємо це все калькулювати в прибуток або втрати в собівартість, яку ми вкладаємо в продукт, виходить трошки зовсім інша ситуація, ніж ми очікуємо і ніж ми бачимо. Що стосується інфраструктури, немає інтернету, немає комп'ютера, інфраструктури в регіон, немає комп'ютера, немає знань про це, немає доступу до інформації. Дійсно, діджитал напрям дуже важливий в Україні, дуже класно розвивається, але є виклик з кібербезпекою. Ми знаємо ситуацію з останніми реєстрами, ми знаємо, що трапилося, і ми знаємо наслідки, особливо для бізнесу, який зараз не може зареєструватися через ці реєстри, не може змінити нічого через ці реєстри. Тому отакі знання, про які згадувала Кейт, і їх важливість, вони дійсно дуже-дуже є ключовими, але їх недостатньо на регіональному рівні, особливо для жінок, які віком 50+, 55+. Яке рішення, і дуже багато, до речі, жінок, які є переселенками зовнішніми, яке рішення за кордоном країни знайшли, вони проводять такі курси на базі бібліотек. Для мене це дуже простий такий випадок, де можна вбити двох зайців, так, і задіяти приміщення тих бібліотек, які в кожному невеличкому районному центрі є, дякувати, що ще є, так, десь звідки залишились. В якому вони стані, це вже інше питання, але є. Да, і є молоді люди, які могли би навчати таких людей похилого віку чи старшого віку, да, доступу до цих діджитал ресурсів. Якщо цього не буде, ну, ця частина суспільства, на жаль, залишиться без тих процесів, які, ну, за якими треба слідкувати, які треба відслідковувати. Щодо робочого капіталу, якщо його не буде, то не буде обороту готівки і без готівки взагалі в країні. І він потрібен, але він потрібен не від донорів і не через гранти. Це повністю рішення за державою і це рішення за банками, які знаходяться в Україні. Тому що гранти – це не панацея. Я завжди підтримую грантову історію в бізнесі, але завжди при цьому наголошую. Це може бути підтримка виживання, це може підтримка бути якоїсь окремої ініціативи, але це не може бути річна, довгострокова, грантова підтримка вашої діяльності. Ви створювали бізнес для того, щоб отримувати прибуток від якоїсь вашої активності. Коли ви створювали бізнес, ви не ставили собі на мету розвивати його тільки за рахунок грантів або тільки за рахунок закликів «купуй у малих». Ні. Ви створювали з якоюсь ідеєю реалізації свого продукту і заробітку грошей на цьому продукті, да? Або на сервісі. Тому виходьте з того, що гранти можуть бути короткостроковим рішенням ваших викликів, але не довгостроковою підтримкою розвитку вашого бізнесу. Тут більша робота – це робота через банки, це робота через державну підтримку, не через міжнародних донорів, і це можуть бути, да, кредити, да, якась бізнес-іпотека, і да, це може бути підтримка через інвесторів. І тут дійсно питання важливе, яке Аня вже зачепила, це підтримка через інвесторів, з розуміння того, яка частка інвесторів буде у вашому бізнесі і правил, за якими ви маєте з ними працювати, да, і зобов'язань цих бізнесів перед інвесторами. Тому що ризик є, і якщо навіть ми говоримо про українського інвестора для українського бізнесу, я не говорю вже про інвесторів за кордоном, бо дійсно для них це величезні ризики, і навіть якщо в нас є інвестиційна няня, і мама була, і тато, якби був, кожен рахує свої гроші і розуміє ризик вкладання в Україну. Да, потенціал великий. В Україні вкласти це потенціал великий, але і ризики великі. Да? Тому я зараз, говорячи навіть про нашого внутрішнього інвестора, хочу зазначити, що немає чітко прописаних напрямків, відсутність інформації і відсутність освіти щодо інвестиційного розвитку, чи венчурного капіталу, чи інвестицій в бізнесі, чи інвестицій в стартапи. Це дуже великий геп, і це дуже така незакрита тема, де обертаються гроші, які не використані. І саме тому легше в Україні купити нерухоме майно і його здавати в оренду і заробляти умовно на ньому гроші, ніж вкладати в якийсь бізнес, бо туди треба вкласти і багато з цим розбиратися. Конкуренція на зарубіжних ринках під час експорту – це конкуренція в офлайн форматі з місцевими виробниками, які відкривають магазини, да, і їм все-таки надає перевагу місцеве населення і купує їхні продукти. Да, вони, можливо, куплять українські продукти, тому що їм цікаво, тому що десь щось новеньке, але все ж таки в глобальній перспективі і в довгостроковій вони звикли до свого продукту і вони будуть купувати свій місцевий продукт. Тому тут моя порада для українських бізнесів – кооперуватися офлайн, кооперуватися з місцевими. Да? Можливо, працювати через франшизу, десь отакий напрям. Що стосується онлайн, дуже велика конкуренція дійсно з азійським ринком, з китайським ринком. Якою може бути тут перевага, і що я для себе відмітила, особливо якщо йдеться про великі компанії, да, які продають послуги чи товари з України, великі, дійсно, які десь відомі на глобальному ринку, але мають свою таку підбірку конкурентів китайських товарів, це все-таки показувати оцей момент DEI, да, Diversity і Inclusion, щоб покупці і клієнти розуміли цінність вашого товару і цінність того, яку компанію вони підтримують. Бо ми всі знаємо, наскільки важко працюють працівники в жахливих умовах на китайських, азійських фабриках, які виробляють ці дешеві продукти. Ну, дешеві, тому що, як правило, конкуренція в ціні. Да? Я не думаю, що конкуренція в якості. Конкуренція, як правило, в ціні. Да? То, можливо, через отакі підходи, інформування, просвітництво вас, як відповідального бізнесу, це може так спрацювати таким плюсом, що вас десь більше будуть купувати, тому що будуть розділяти ваші цінності. Для мене важливо зазначити, що багато хто пишається, і є в нас ситуація, коли ми пишаємося, що відкривається дуже багато жіночих бізнесів. Я також цим пишаюся, я дуже рада, але як я заявляла вже на нашій другій конференції, важливо розуміти, що кількість – це не якість. Якщо подивитися на цифри 2024 року, то близько 284 тисячі бізнесів ФОПів відкрилося і 209 закрилося. 209 тисяч бізнесів закрилося. Можемо порахувати різницю, і розуміти, де все-таки в нас динаміка, і якщо ще подивитися всередину цих підприємств, які в різниці залишаються, що це за підприємства і в чому вони конкурентні, чи що вони виробляють, чи створюють робочі місця. Давайте будемо дивитися на ситуацію трошечки глибше, тоді в нас будуть більш якісніші рекомендації, інструменти до зміни того, що відбувається загалом. Що загалом? По тих рекомендаціях, які ви зазначили, дійсно гендерні стереотипи є, дійсно упереджені є. Дійсно ситуація, з якою треба працювати, але таке є по всьому світу. Я вам скажу так. Тому тут для мене важливо, немає ніякого нового інструменту, той самий інструмент, рольові моделі і приклади, особливо в регіонах. Рольові моделі і приклади того, хто не повірив в наш бізнес, а я ось тут стою і маю цей бізнес, ну, наприклад, навіть з дівчатами, з прикладом дівчат, які сьогодні в нас виступали. Я не думаю, що всі прямо на їхній на розвитку цій стежині, всі їх підтримали і казали, боже, звісно, давай, в'яжи. Ми знаємо дуже багато бізнесів, які почали в'язати так само, як Аня, але не мають таких результатів через певну низку причин, і в тому числі там була якась низка і стереотипів, і упереджень. Тому рольові моделі, приклади, такі як дівчата, їх треба показувати, без них буде набагато важче. Ось що буде, якщо ми не будемо їх показувати. Нерівний доступ до фінансування. Нещодавно я маю монзовську карточку, і ще там карточку одного банку, і там є опція інвестування в бізнеси, від $50. І коли я почала читати умови, я побачила, що є умови фінансування, які ранжуються тільки за ступенем ризику. Приклади, які дозволяють фінансувати компанії чи інвестувати в якісь компанії, не ранжовані за статтю. Я, наприклад, не хотіла би вкладати своїх умовно $50 в компанії, які очолюються чоловіком. Я би хотіла, щоб це були компанії, які очолюються жінками. Тобто, якщо фінансові організації, підприємства мають такі договори чи меморандуми з банками, важливо їх ранжувати також за статтю. Для мене, наприклад, цей момент доступу до фінансування, який може дуже просто вирішитися. Бо для мене важливіше було б підтримати компанію умовно Юлі, ніж компанію іншого. Не тому, що я так якось упереджено ставлюся до бізнесу, який очолюється жінками, але я надаю перевагу бізнесу, який очолюється чоловіками, вибачте, надаю перевагу бізнесу, який очолюється жінками. Такої опції у мене, на жаль, немає. Тобто це той рівень, де також ваші клієнти можуть бути долучені до формування для вас певних джерел фінансування. За це треба думати і думати за ці інструменти, де це може бути. Це не може бути тільки через гранти, чи тільки через гроші держави чи банки. Також це може бути через гроші клієнтів, але трошечки з іншого боку. Керівні посади, скляна стеля, про яку ми всі знаємо, ще в 2015 році було визначено, що чоловіків на ім'я 9 набагато більше, ніж жінок на керівних посадах. Тепер вже підрахував Ерст Янг, здається, що ситуація вирівнялася, і чоловіків на ім'я 9 на керівних посадах однаково і жінок на керівних посадах однаково за кількістю. Це треба відслідковувати. І тут також важливе треба менторство і видимість. Якщо цього не буде, якщо ми не будемо показувати цього прикладу, на жаль, нам не буде на кого обіпертися і показати, що ця людина змогла і ти зможеш. Тут немає нічого такого, що може тобі зашкодити чи може стати тобі бар'єром, який ти не зможеш подолати. На це треба звертати увагу і про це не треба забувати. Також важливо пам'ятати, що Україна – країна, яка тільки починає працювати з менторством, наставництвом, коучингом, спонсорством. Ці всі поняття, так само як поняття венчурний капітал, інвестиції, дуже незнайомі. І це все треба роз'яснювати. Люди не хочуть, і жінки, зокрема, не хочуть витрачати свою енергію на незрозумілі речі, тому що вона і так обмежена. Тому ці бізнес-мережі, жіночі бізнес-мережі мають вчити, розказувати, що це таке, навіщо воно потрібно і чим ми, жінки, можемо одна одну підсилити. І як ментори, наприклад, і як менті. Це треба таку систему розвивати, і зупинюсь окремо на регіонах, на рівні регіонів також, да, про що зазначала Кейт. Якщо цього не буде, то ми так і залишимося з дуже великим гепом. Баланс між роботою і особистим життям, про який згадували, да, ментальне здоров'я, тут також входить. Ну, балансу немає, всі ми знаємо. Да? Чи не всі, а я думаю, що жінки-підприємці точно знають. Балансу немає, тому ви для себе маєте будувати гнучкі умови праці, вимагати цього від роботодавця, шукати того роботодавця, який розуміє це, який підтримує, який працює, наприклад, з Women Empowerment Principles, да, принципами розширення прав можливостей жінок від ООН «Жінки». В Україні, до речі, таких компаній 42, в Америці 436, в Китаї 422, в Чехії, здається, 18, да, тобто ми 22 компанії, до речі, за період війни підписали Women Empowerment Principle і визначили, що вони хочуть підтримувати жінок на робочому місці і формувати для них, в тому числі, гнучкий графік роботи, щоб можна було комбінувати і особисте, і кар'єрне життя. Тому тут така ваша домашня робота – розуміти, де ви з яким роботодавцем працюєте, або де ви і з яким клієнтом працюєте, хто вас підтримує, да, і не пише вам в 12 ночі, а де мій товар, умовно кажучи. Інформація, дійсно її відсутність, якщо ми не будемо мати, в тому числі через діджитал ресурси, ми не будемо використовувати свої можливості. Мені здається, що тут також є дуже великий пробіл до сих пір, проблема є, і до сих пір ця ніша не зайнята. Немає такої співпраці в екосистемі, між організаціями, які підтримують жінок щодо поширення можливостей для жінок, немає співпраці з фондами зайнятості, а це дуже важливий орган, який забезпечений і забезпечується, і забезпечений інформацією на місцях і має доступ до тих жінок, які потребують підтримки. Да? Тут важливо інформувати по кілька разів через різні мережі, через медіа, через телебачення. На жаль, соціальні мережі на регіонах не працюють, і якщо ми будемо говорити про діджитал тільки через соціальні мережі, Інстаграм, Фейсбук і так далі, ми не достукаємося до них, тому що там працює телебачення. Ми, як приклад, наприклад, розглядаємо можливість зараз працювати з Суспільним. Да? Суспільне є підписантом Women Empowerment Principles, да? І вони можуть поширювати інформацію про різні можливості для жінок через телебачення, радіо і інші свої мережі. Інклюзивна корпоративна культура. Знову згадаю ситуацію, яку ми маємо сьогодні, тенденції ті, про які всі багато хто говорить, да? Особливо хто знайомий з темою ідеї і працює в темі ідеї, да? Треба фільтрувати те, що в нас є, і все-таки інформування заголовку статті і читання самої статті – це різні речі, тому треба підходити трохи глобально і стратегічно до того, що може змінитися на ринку, і кожному бізнесу, напевно, треба розуміти, де взагалі їхній клієнт, які цінності розділяє, і що для нього їхній продукт в контексті гендерного підходу. Да? Тут треба про це не забувати. Ну і я би зазначила такі тенденції, про які тут ми ще не згадували, це нейрорізноманітність і штучний інтелект. Про це не треба забувати, і не треба забувати про їхній вплив. Знову, якщо брати за основу тренди, то в світі на останній конференції, на якій я була в Лондоні по ідеї, наприклад, більше обговорювали тему дислексії, ніж тему підтримки жінок, тому що тема підтримки жінок начебто вже очевидна, а тема підтримки людей з дислексією набагато рідкісніша, тому що, ну, наприклад, людей з дислексією у нас в світі більше, ніж людей з блакитними очима. Я, наприклад, про це не знала, а дислексію виявити, я не знаю підходів по роботі з людьми, які мають дислексію в українських бізнесах, да? А цю тему обговорюють на закордонному ринку, взагалі оці такі моменти інклюзивності, які є невидимими, да? Про які ви одразу і не скажете, але ви маєте їх розрізняти і маєте з ними працювати, особливо в світлі того, що у нас відбувається в країні з війною. Да? І важливий момент, про який також сьогодні ми не згадували, низька залученість чоловіків в ті процеси, які ми обговорюємо про жінок і про жіночу підтримку. Дуже не вистачає, вони невидимі в цій темі, абсолютно невидимі. Жінки підтримують і говорять тільки про себе, чоловіків-союзників не вистачає. Тому я дуже раджу всім проектам, які працюють в цій темі, особливо в Україні, звертати на це увагу. Тому що я зустрічаю на міжнародних конференціях представників в панелях чоловіків, які розуміють і розділяють цю тему. В Україні, на жаль, ми їх вишукуємо, прям я не знаю, як... не можу навіть порівняти якогось такого звіра, який давно вже десь немає його на планеті. Отак ми з чоловіками, які відкрито підтримують жінок-підприємець, деї і так далі. Це дуже важливо, і ми маємо розуміти, що все ж таки в чоловічому світі, який є, необхідно завойовувати цю підтримку і необхідно її підтримувати. Таке союзництво. Це ті теми, що я хотіла сказати, і те, що я хотіла зазначити. Тому без того всього, що зазначила Кейт, без таких прикладів, якими сьогодні є дівчата, можливо, без деяких моїх тез, нам буде набагато складніше підтримувати оцей розвиток жіночого підприємництва, взагалі видимість жінок в економіці і в суспільстві, і працювати в цьому напрямку. Дякую.
Thank you so much, Dr. Tytarchuk, for this really helpful recap and a really summary of everything we have discussed. The most important question is what would happen if we did not support Ukrainian women? Just imagine the other scenario, how handicapped the economy would be if we didn't do that. So yes, let's make sure to use your advice, use your suggestions, include men in supporting Ukrainian women as well, and make them more powerful, more impactful, right?
Так.
And so thank you so much for joining us. I know it was your second time joining us, and we very much appreciate it. So now I will ask Kate and Susan to read questions in the chat if there are any, and I see some, right?
Yes, thank you so much, Agnes. And I wanted to say thank you to Thomas Galloway for posing this question, which is something that has come up in our conversations around these conferences as well, and is something obviously that has deep resonance for women who have studied history in the US. So I really appreciate this question. So the question is, first, thank you to our speakers for their insightful comments. Building on Kate and Elena's points and those of other presenters, we've heard about the positive changes in women's participation in the workforce and entrepreneurship during this period. However, there are concerns that this progress could diminish after the war ends and many men return to the workforce. What changes have you observed that could help sustain this increased participation and reduce the risk of reverting to previous levels of gender inequality and economic participation?
So I know that Elena had to leave us, so I'm going to go ahead and answer that from my perspective. And as Susan pointed out, that history shows us in many countries, including the US, that when a war ends, there is an influx of those who have been in the military returning and returning to jobs in industry. But I would also say that we have talked a lot today about women, but we've also talked about Ukraine's economy and Ukraine's business environment, and that has expanded, and that is not going to contract again. And so overall, I don't want to simplify, but I'd also say that there is room for all. It's not a this or that kind of an answer. It's the economy has expanded, the country has expanded into a more global trade situation. So we know that we all talked about the eastern part of the country and the heavy industry there, but there are other industries that have been developed and that are continuing to move forward. And so I think, there's room for all. And I think that there will be a trade-off in some segments, but I don't believe that, as at the risk of sort of talking to just the women, we won't be put backwards. There's energy and there is momentum with women, and we've talked about their contribution in the tax base. We've talked about their contribution in their local and national economies. That is needed as Ukraine rebuilds. So there is a need for all. And I think that there is an expansion, not a contraction in the future.
And women have a proven record of actually doing it right now, supporting and sustaining the Ukrainian economy. So nobody will take it away from them going forward. They proved themselves basically, right? So I think that it will be important to bring it up and keep it in front of policymakers, but we want to keep doing that. But I think it's irreversible. In other words, Ukrainian women proved themselves to be strong market players, supporting families during the hardest times. And so we are not moving back for sure. All right, what is the next question, Susan?
Yeah, thank you for those responses. And I actually want to, I want to add on to that as well, as I feel like, many of the skills that women have acquired over the last several years, as well as they have taken on new responsibilities, will enable them to continue the work that they are doing and to grow their businesses and to grow their professional experiences, which have such value that it will be much more difficult to simply replace those positions. So I wanted to highlight that as well. But with a great question for Anna and for Yuliia from Ian, and this is, I love this question as well. It's very specific, bringing things back to the need for capital in your business. And the question is, you have stated that you need financing for working capital, for example, a marketing budget, which I believe you mentioned, Yuliia. What size of financing, either in US dollars or Ukrainian, do you think would be appropriate and impactful for your businesses? Would you want this financing to be a debt facility or an equity investment? Fantastic question. Thank you for that, Ian. And Anna, I will ask you to respond first, and then Yuliia, if you could chime in as well, that would be great.
Thank you for this straightforward question. Yeah, in our case, we are looking more to the debt financing. We did have actually some offers for equity and investment, and not from Ukraine, but we still on the level maybe a little afraid of this. I would be very friendly here, because it's something we do not know a lot about, and it's it's a complex that business maybe is not ready for investment, etc., etc. So at this stage, we would look more to some debts and the level of debt that really would have some impact, because we are reinvesting own money, and so we are developing still on the own efforts. And for something that can have impact, it would be like half of our annual turnover, maybe $350,000 that I know on the one hand that we have sales and we have money income that we can return it for some period, and that can help us to make some substantial changes in marketing, in investing in staff, and what is most important for us, investing in stock creation and in products and marketing. Yeah.
Thank you, Anna. Yuliia, I'd love to hear from you as well.
Yeah, just before leaving Norway, we've been making those calculations, and we came up with a number like $300,000 US dollars. And I was thinking to exchange it for 10 to 20% of the equity. But moving back to Ukraine changed a lot the picture. So I think I would probably I will be recalculating things, but roughly I would say it will be from 100 to 200.
Thank you. And Yuliia, can you specify, would you be interested also, you'd be looking in financing, so it'd be a debt a loan specifically?
So for now, the plan is to find a grant to help to restart production and exporting, and of course, the debt would be a really good option as well. And I'm open for equity sharing as well.
Great, thank you. And I feel like you just kind of really summed up what Iryna was referring to earlier, which is this idea of, grants for short term, maybe getting restarted with your business and then being able to transition then from a grant position into, working through loans and having more of a sustainable capital investment into your business. And I'm also hearing, as long as we're talking about needs for women-owned businesses in terms of training and learning, is I'm hearing that there is a need for understanding the impact that private equity or investment can have on small businesses. And Kate and I are a small business who have gone through that process, and we know firsthand some of the pros and cons of going through that process. And we agree that this could be a really, really impactful thing for small businesses in Ukraine to get some better understanding and learnings around. So thank you for highlighting that, Anna and Yuliia.
Susanna, okay, do we have time for one more question?
We actually were down to 3 minutes, so I would love to just take a moment, Agnes, if you'd like to just bring us back to our closing statements. And obviously, we are here. I've shared our website in the chat. You can easily find us through our website. So if there are questions after the conference, please do not hesitate to reach out to Kate or to me, obviously to Agnes as well. But if you'd like to just bring us back to closing, Agnes, that would be great.
So in closing, we of course always go a little too long, but this is such an interesting and inspiring discussion that we can't stop. That's what's happening every single time. So I would like to express our sincere appreciation to our speakers and panelists for an engaging session. I would also like to thank our participants for joining us today, and our amazing partner, WMarketplace, for organizing and leading this conference series. Ukrainian businesswomen are a crucial part of Ukraine's resilience, and they will play a crucial role in rebuilding Ukraine's economy. And as they continue supporting Ukrainian economy, we will continue supporting them and all of you. Thank you for joining this conference series. Please know that we intend to put our findings and recommendations from this program in front of the policymakers, both in the United States and Ukraine, to see more measurable actions in support of Ukrainian women-led businesses. Finally, thank you to all my team members who made this conference series possible. Thank you for continuing working on Ukrainian women issues. And that concludes our conference series. Thank you so much for joining us. Stay in touch and send us questions. You know where to find us, and we are looking forward to seeing you during our next events. Thank you, and happy New Year.
Thank you very much. Happy New Year.
Yeah, successful Happy New Year. Stay safe.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you so much.